Hi, and welcome to the Secret Sauce of Selling podcast, the ultimate guide and sales gym to unlocking the secrets of successful selling. I'm your host, James Abraham, and I'm excited to be here with you today to share insights, tactics, and strategies, attitudes, behaviors, and techniques to help you take your sales performance and sales leadership game to the next level. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. This week, I have a super duper special guest. And I'm used to being on the other side of this, and a total honor to have Mike Montague on the show today. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, James, so great to be here. I'm excited to talk about VUCA and magic sales leader. Oh, no, that's what you talk about on my podcast. I won't steal your
You have a
thunder.
good, you have a good memory, man. That is awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming, and I'm so excited to have you, and just have this other way around. And by the way, I mean, you're probably going to be measuring up my podcast host skills, and I would appreciate some feedback at the end. Okay. We're always looking to get
Well,
better.
I'm rarely a guest, so same way. We'll talk afterwards, see how we did.
Awesome. All right. So let's start. Mike, why don't you give everybody an idea of who you are and what you do and how you got to where you are today? And then we'll jump into this really interesting topic that we've chosen for this episode.
Well, that's awesome. My journey with Sandler is a really long one, so I'll give you the abbreviated version, which is my dad loved psychology, and he found Sandler training when I was a junior in high school. So I took my first professional sales training at about 15 years old. But in my 20s, I didn't think I could go around telling, 40, 60-year-old owners of companies what they should do with their sales team. So instead, I got into internet marketing and radio, and I went into business owners' offices and told them what they should do with their websites instead. And unfortunately, it took me about 10 years to realize, oh, you idiot, that's the same thing. That's the same conversation. It's just about something else. So at about 30, that was 13 years ago, I started full time with Sandler as a trainer in Kansas City. And then I wrote a book called LinkedIn the Sandler Way, where we show salespeople how to use LinkedIn to actually start sales conversations instead of just for marketing and blasting messages out to people. And that got the attention of our president and CEO, David Mattson, and he hired me full time to do basically content marketing, brand ambassador for Sandler. So I write a lot of blogs. I do a lot of podcasts. Like, since you're listening to a podcast, you might want to check out the How to Succeed podcast. There's over 600 episodes, over 3 million downloads. It's an awesome resource for sales leaders and managers as well. And I'm just having a great time living the dream. Get to do all the cool, fun things that I like to do. I never turn down a chance to be behind a microphone. And I love talking about personal growth.
I love it. That's awesome. And today's topic is the role of humanity in a world of AI. Tell us a little bit more about that topic.
I was lucky to be born at the perfect time, I think. I have grown up with technology. So my mom won a computer in a radio station contest in like 1985, 86. And as a 7-year-old, I had to learn how to program the computer in order to play any games on it because there weren't
Yeah.
programs or anything. So some of us are old enough to remember that time, but my Apple IIc computer didn't really even have floppy disks that did anything. They basically just started up and you had to figure out how to run it. So that was kind of my entry into technology. And ever since then, I've just been growing up with it. So I was on the radio when social media came out. And obviously, it was cool. I got to have tens of thousands of fans and followers on MySpace. I was crushing it on MySpace, James. I was so sad when they went down. But then Facebook and LinkedIn and everything else, that brought me to the book in leveraging social media for salespeople. But I have also built over 200 websites, and I just really kind of understand technology and how to use it. And I feel like we're at an interesting time here where we have to make some choices now. If you haven't already, I have a separate phone that I take on vacation that doesn't have any apps on it. It's called the
Hmm.
Light phone, and you can just call and make text messages on it. That's it. It's a phone. So the rest of the time, I eliminate distractions. I regularly take digital detoxes to for my mental health and productivity when I'm writing or stuff like that. And I think in a world with AI now, we really have to decide, what do we want robots and computer programs to do, and what do we want humans to do? And I think in sales and leadership, this is going to be a really interesting question now. Up until now, we could kind of kick the can down the road and be like, well, computers can't make a phone call. Computers can't sell for us. Computers can't lead a team. Well, they're getting closer and closer. If not in the next like 2 years, certainly in the next 5 to 10, that could be a real possibility. And then we have to decide, should computers sell? Should computers lead people? And that's a different question that I think we've been asking up to this point.
Yeah, I feel that past few months, Q1, 2023, Q2, in a very short period of time, there's a lot of pressure that's being put on sellers. One is because of the economic downturn, as called, and so
Yeah.
sellers are now under pressure. Before they were enjoying order taking, they were enjoying the good life. But now suddenly, whoa, wait a second. Most of them have never experienced anything like this before. Maybe the beginning of COVID, but then that shifted very fast. And, COVID was a good blessing for many businesses. And so they just went into order taking mode again. And so now they're getting that pressure of, wait, we actually need to sell. So, and now that's even enhanced. And the pressure they're getting is, will I be replaced? And that can be scary because, I mean, if you do you know the stat of what is the value of the sales industry? I think there's a number. There's like 60 billion number or something. Is there a number for that?
There is. I don't know the actual number, but it's
There's a number. I
huge.
think
At least in the United States, I know it's the number one profession. Like 13% of people are salespeople right now. And some of the
not to
projections are
mention your
up to
entrepreneurs.
90% can be replaced with AI. If you're a
Yep.
bad salesperson, I would be worried. And so I think now's the time to upskill your game, make sure you're better, make sure you're having conversations that matter. Because if you're just reading off of a script in a telemarketing call center, we can make robots do that.
Oh yeah, and also I think today, I mean, I've talked to so many. Are like, oh, I just got this script from Chat GPT, and I said,
Mm,
really? Let's hear it. Now, Chat GPT is pretty good. It's pretty cool. But what I heard from that salesperson was a disastrous tone. I'm like, oh my, oh, good luck with that. But you know, so I think it's one is knowing how to use these tools, but two, it's constantly staying ahead, making sure that you cannot be replaced. And I think that's the biggest challenge salespeople have today when they ask themselves, how can I make sure that I'm not replaced? And that's that imposter syndrome, if you may.
yeah.
So what are your thoughts around that? What do you believe salespeople should or could be doing these days to make sure that they will not be that they're not replaceable, that they're ahead of the curve?
I love that. I have three things here, real quick. First of all, Steve Jobs said way back in the 80s, they did a study about the most efficient animals on the planet. Have you heard this one?
Nope.
So they measured like 100-mile trip. Who could make that the easiest, most efficient? Like an elephant, a human,
Yeah.
a camel, an eagle. It turns out the condor was number one. Condor
Hmm.
uses very little energy. It can basically like coast and just float its way all the way there. It needs very little food, water, air, and it can make the trip. Humans were about a third of the way down the list. So it's interesting because that's not bad. That's pretty efficient. You give us water and some food, and we're pretty much good to go. And we could go a pretty long ways. But somebody had the foresight to check a human on a bicycle, and human on a
Hmm.
bicycle can even beat a condor on the 100-mile trip. So lesson number one here is humans with tools outperform humans without tools, but they also generally outperform robots and other tools by themselves. Because when you combine the human intuition, creativity, knowing when to break the rules with the efficiency and scale of technology and tools and robots and the leverage you can create with tools that help assist you, much like the tools for this podcast and others, we get to have a conversation we couldn't have otherwise, right? So humans with tools are most efficient. And I think we need to give them equal weight going forward. Second thing is we mentioned Chat GPT, and I think there's a danger here when we aggregate all of this information, like ChatGPT studies all of the scripts that are out there on the internet and then gives you an average. So it's not giving you the best possible cold calling script, right? It's giving you the average one. And most salespeople stink. Most people write bad scripts. So, in order to increase that, we need to apply our human knowledge, our instinct, and our experience to what's giving us an up level, upskill that, raise it up a level to get to the next game. And the third one, I think, is you mentioned tonality. That the problem most people have when they even read a script or they're using tools is they become a robot. And it's terrible. We've been training humans to do this for over 100 years now. That about 120 years ago or so, Henry Ford and the plants and in Germany and other places, they needed humans to be robots because we didn't have robots or computers. So we
Yeah.
developed this whole school system and everything else to train people to follow instructions, to check boxes, to keep going 8 hours a day so we could run 3 shifts of our robot human machines. And it didn't allow for creativity. It didn't enhance those skills. I feel like the same thing is happening now. People are not becoming better communicators because all of this technology, social media, apps, and direct messages have defaulted and turned us into robots. So if we don't bring our passion, energy, and enthusiasm, we're not bringing our humanity to the sales and leadership process.
Yeah, I agree. I think salespeople and anyone out there, I apologize if I offend anybody. This is the part where I might offend someone, so I apologize if I offended. But I mean, I've been in sales for the past 30 plus years. And there's one thing I've noticed. Salespeople have a tendency to cut corners and sometimes to be
Mhm.
a little lazy. I'm not saying it in a bad word. I myself will admit that I am lazy from time to time. We're human.
It can be a
And
good skill too. It can be an asset sometimes
yeah, I
when
mean,
used
if you're really
correctly.
good at it and you're able to generate revenue, then good to you. I love it. Teach me. I want to learn. But if you think, and you know what, I think a lot of people have done really well because they were looking for the shortcut, right? But I think salespeople tend to lean on AI as a means of cutting a corner or slacking off or taking a shortcut or being a little more lazy, and that's okay. And you mentioned it right now. You just said it. That's that empathy piece and the tonality. And Steve Jobs, I got this. Steve Jobs once said, "I don't make phones. We don't make phones. We build robots that build phones."
There you go.
Yeah. And I think these days sales professionals are struggling to figure out how they can leverage this stuff, how it can work for them, not them work for it. And yeah, you just mentioned it on the script. They're turning into their own robots, and that's pretty scary for them. And so I want to take this conversation a little bit towards what have that robots don't? What should salespeople have that AI cannot give them? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I think there are a few things. So the first one I mentioned was the ability to break the rules. Again, robots are we call them TAMIs here. It's an acronym TAM. It's a totally autonomous moron. The program is doing exactly what it was designed to do, which means when it gets data outside of the range, it's possible. So even if we have a really good number, if we say 80% of buyers buy when you say this, this, and this, the robot could do it. But that's still 1 in 5 buyers who would be turned off by you saying that. So the human intuition right now is the interesting one that can tell when to say that, when to stop the sales call a timeout, and reset because it's not going well. And we can see all of those tonality issues, the micro expressions, and we can say something's not right here. We need to change our tactic. We need to learn and grow from this. We need to stop our presentation and go in a different direction. And I think that human intuition is still more powerful than the AI intuition. It
I
doesn't mean we can't add to it. There's really cool tools that can add to all of those things and maybe show you some things that you missed as a human too. But being able to read those and interpret the data, I still think is more interesting as a human. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I always say, as long as there's nothing, as long as artificial emotional intelligence isn't out there, then we're okay, right? Because at
Right.
the end of the day, and we're selling people. People buy from people. People buy from people they like. People buy from people they trust. And I think we have, and this is my little prop I like to use from time to time.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, yeah. Look, and for those listeners and viewers who are not aware, you see, the human brain is not designed for 2023. It's designed for 100,000 BC, 200,000 BC. It's designed for survival, not for success. And those that are enhancing their brain for success, they're just starting to fire and wire their neurons in a certain way that will help them achieve what they want. And there's something called um, neuron mirroring, if anyone knows what that
Hmm.
is. And it's basically, yeah, and that's something that machines cannot change. They can't control that. That it's out of the game. And even over Zoom, even over virtual selling, it works. But I think the problem is that most sellers aren't aware of the powerful tools that they already acquire. They have in them genetically, biologically, physiologically. And what they're doing is they're leaning on these shortcuts, hoping that. And so, I mean, that's just my 2 cents when it comes to this stuff. When the topic is the role of humanity in a world of AI, and I think each seller needs to really ask themselves, what is my role? What is my role? What am I here to do? I mean, just make a sale, get a commission, and then do it all over again, or build relationships, drive opportunities
Well,
through the funnel with sufficient.
yeah, I was going to jump in and give you one more, which is I think um, listening is an interesting one. That sometimes it's also not about what you say, it's not about the output. It's about having another human there to listen to you explain your problems and to help connect with you emotionally about it. Now, there are some interesting things about AI and other chatbots and things that for like let's say humans with Alzheimer's or things that the robots can actually be a lot more patient in getting the same question over and over 100 times and can help individuals in that situation. But I think an empathetic human in a sales call or in a leadership conversation is much more powerful, even just listening. I don't know about you, but I hate when I have to talk to my Google or Alexa device
Yeah,
because and I'm giving up on McDonald's now. Here next to me doesn't have people; it has robot order takers, and I'm done. I was like, I can't do that. I don't want to talk to a machine. I don't feel like it's actually listening, even if it's hearing the words that I'm saying, and it's a subtle difference. In some cases, it might not matter if you're ordering a commodity, but if you're in an emotional state and you need someone to solve your problem and you want a customer service rep or a customer success agent to help you solve a problem, you don't want a robot at this point.
and so it's an evolutionary thing, right? I mean, that's what I'm saying. I think that salespeople are really just freaking out, and what they're doing is they're gravitating towards something that they have zero control over, right? And there's only thing we can control. We can't control AI. We can't control our prospects. We can only control our own behaviors and ourselves. And I think a lot of times what's happening is people just are struggling to find their place. They're struggling to understand the gifts they have. They see their gifts as a curse. They're thinking, wow, I'm under pressure and I'm getting all emotional in the sales process. Instead of thinking to themselves, wait a second, if I'm getting emotional, that means the buyer can get emotional. Let's get him emotional. Why should I be emotional? And why don't I use what I've got in order to flip that over? And I think people go throughout their career without even realizing that. That's the kind of
Uh,
sad side, but yeah.
yeah, I don't think it's Steve Jobs this time, but I don't remember who said it. But when they're developing software in Silicon Valley, they have this saying that it's not a bug, it's a feature. And
Mm.
so the things that make us human are not our weaknesses. Those are the strengths, right? And so we need to understand that the messiness of that is when we need to use humanity. We need to humans to jump in when it gets messy. If it's all simple and organized and in a nice neat row and you just want to go on Amazon and buy some toilet paper or whatever, fine, go do that. That's simple, it's orderly. When you're stuck and you don't know what to buy or you don't know which, um, college to send your kid to or something, that's probably not an online purchase, right? That's somebody that we need to talk to humans and counselors, and it's a multifaceted issue. And I think those will be around for a long time. But those jobs are available for high level sellers and professionals, not people who are looking to get paid to read scripts and be told what to do. It's the people that can work in that uncertainty and work when nobody knows what to do and figure that problem.
Absolutely. So for any sellers out there, guys, just the solutions in your own mind, your solutions in your own heart. Look inside yourself, see what you're probably most afraid of. That's probably where you find the solution to stay ahead of the curve. Mike, it's the time for me to ask you, what is your secret sauce for selling?
Well, it's probably not going to be a surprise at this point, but I think for me, it's the flexibility. I just grew up in an interesting household. My dad was super business, super professional from a long line of salespeople, all boys, very ordered, very kind of militaristic and stuff too. And my mom her grandmother was a piano teacher, and they're all females and they're all artists and very unusual, like fashion designers and creators and speakers. And so I feel like I got the best of both worlds. And even in high school, I was like an athlete and I was on the science knowledge bowl team and nerding out in the math camp in the summers. And that flexibility gave me a superpower to be able to relate and talk to anybody and deal with a lot of different situations.
Oh, that's awesome. Different people, different styles, different
Yeah.
reasons. Um, I love it. And you are definitely a master of communication, that's for sure. This is a good point for us to just mention our sponsors, Novacy. Novacy unlocks behavioral insights from virtual meetings to close more business. And it really records what's really happening, what is being said, what isn't being said, and does use AI for intelligence and insights on body language and verbal communication.
I think it's
Mike,
so cool too. That's the chance to like add those insights to your human selling. That's another tool that you can leverage to add to your own human awareness of what's
yeah,
going
and
on
if you
around
think about it, I think these days a lot of people are like, they're more about, well, did my prospect like me? Does he
the
like my product? Right? I'm like, well, let's figure out right now. Does he have a problem and is he in pain and is he emotionally attached to it? How bad does he need a solution to the problem? Because I find that, and I'm sure a lot of listeners here, prospects like to sugarcoat everything.
yeah. Well, and salespeople love to get happy ears too, right? They love to hear
Yep.
only the positive stuff that happened, which
Yep.
again is not necessarily a bug. That's a feature. Their enthusiasm and their excitement about the deal is what helps. But we also need that neutral, objective third party listening to the call and giving us data on what actually happened.
100%. 100%. Mike, is there anything interesting you're listening to or watching? Any movie, play? I mean, we've had some amazing stuff here. Anything, a book, a podcast. I know
Mm.
you got a great podcast, and we're going to mention that in a moment. But anything out of the ordinary that you're listening to recently?
Probably not out of the ordinary, but I'm a big fan of like witty comedies and stuff that makes you feel good. So there's a new season of Ted Lasso out. I'm watching that every time it drops. Um, Better Call Saul just dropped a new season on Netflix as well, but that's an amazing one for sales. I feel like almost every character in the show, watch it when you watch an episode of Better Call Saul, every character tries to use the least amount of words possible, except for Saul Goodman. He uses the most amount of words possible. But there's some great sales and interesting influencing tips on that one. And then Shrinking on Apple TV too. Ted Lasso and Shrinking are on Apple TV. They're by the same producer, but Shrinking is like the sort of dirtier, more adult version of Ted Lasso, and it's got a lot of psychology principles in it.
Hmm.
So I love learning that stuff too.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Mike, thank you so much, and just give us another shout out on your podcast so that listeners can kind of subscribe to that. I'm addicted to the How to Succeed podcast. And why don't you give us an idea again of the podcast where you can get
Yeah,
it?
weekly podcast with sales and leadership experts from around the world, like James here, but also famous authors, speakers, interesting thought leaders talking about how to succeed at anything. So it might be how to succeed at doing a TED talk or a public speaking engagement. Might be how to succeed at having a difficult conversation with your employee, or letting somebody go, or how to hire the right person. All kinds of cool topics. There's over 600 of them you can search for. But wherever you're listening or watching this, search for how to succeed. I bet it's there, and give it a shot. I would love it.
Awesome. Mike, you're the best. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on.
See you next time. We'll definitely have you back in the future. And to the listeners, thanks so much for tuning in. Good selling, do the right things for the right reasons, and we'll see you next time.